Now, another story, Sandile Mantsoe will spend 32 years in jail following killing his girlfriend, Karabo Mokoena. Handing down sentence, South Gauteng High Court Judge P. Johnson said Mantsoe had shown no remorse. Mantsoe was given 30 years for that murder. The court added 5 years for assault and 4 years for defeating the ends of justice. However, 7 of those 9 added years will run concurrently, giving Mantsoe an effective 32 years behind bars. Yesterday, the court found Sandile Mantsoe guilty of killing the 22-year-old Karabo Mokoena in April 2017.
For the assault charge, you are sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. For murder, you are sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. For the attempt to defeat or obstruct the course of justice, you are sentenced to 4 years imprisonment. In the interest of mercy, the court orders that 2 years of the 5 years on count 1 and 4 years on count 3 run concurrently with a sentence on count 2. Your effective sentence is therefore 32 years imprisonment. Your advocate had nothing to say in regard to Section 12.1 of Act 60 of 2000. Therefore, in terms of that Section 12.1 of Act 60 of 2000, the court does not order otherwise, which means that you are now automatically unfit to possess a firearm.
All the young men out there who abuses women, wait until you have a daughter. Wait until your daughter is abused. It's going to be very, very, very painful if your daughter is abused. I mean, the accused now, or what should we call him, is the accused what? He's got a daughter. How is he going to feel when the daughter is abused? We don't accept women abuse in totality. We don't accept. I think the judge has said it, that the guy is going to do 32 years, but we actually hoped that maybe he would get life. But the law is the law. The investigation and the gathering all evidence, the judge decided to say, no, okay, he will do 5 years on assault. And the 5 years on assault, I didn't expect that. I expected 15 years. On the 30 years, I expected life. And the banning, which was so bad, I expected more than 15 years. But the law is the law. There's nothing that we can do.
We continue our conversation around the sentencing of Sandile Mantsoe. We're now joined in studio by criminal lawyer Sunette Mark. Sunette, thank you very much for your time.
Good evening.
Perhaps to start with Mantsoe's legal representative. His lawyer says this sentence was overboard. I mean, this is a crime of passion. It's not like it was a robbery with 2 people. They were gun-wielding men that shot at each other. What's your take on that?
No, but in my opinion, I was listening to his take, and the mere fact that he came out and he said, we are closing our case because we have the opinion that the state has not proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt. They did not provide any testimony in a contrary to what was presented against their client. And they, in my opinion, can't now come out and complain and say it's a harsh sentence at all.
But to talk about that decision, perhaps the decision he elected not to take the stand and perhaps lead evidence to rebut this amount of evidence against him for the murder, was that a disservice to himself?
That was absolutely a disservice to himself. If it was my client, and this is not judging any other opposing colleagues of mine whatsoever, yes, I would have put my client on the stand. You need to place testimony on the stand and out there that contradicts anything placed against you. And in not placing a different side to the story out there and in front of the judge, you only give one version. So there's nothing that can actually go and say, listen, maybe let's consider your version and it might be true. What has now been stated by the state is undenied. No contradictory evidence has been led, no further testimony was brought up, no further witnesses were called. In my opinion, this was a poor decision, absolutely.
And certainly wrapped up very quickly because they said they're closing the case, but then now to be appealing. What do you make of that and prospects of success?
No, I don't think they'll really get a prospect of success there. It was a very poor decision from the attorneys and the representative counsel there. And considering I don't even know whether Sandile will have the funds to drive an appeal in the circumstances whatsoever, to start off with that. He might use improper representation by counsel as an excuse here. But what is he going to appeal? There was no vision.
And then as for the defeating the ends of justice, here we have him disposing of a body, at the very least. I mean, just if we had to talk about that crime alone, do you not believe that he could have perhaps explained himself as to, or take us through some sort of an emotional journey, or they lead evidence to say, in a state of shock, you could have somebody do such a thing?
How do you do something as severe as that, even in a state of shock? I mean, how inhumane can you be to take that action? There's no reason whatsoever or an understanding for defeating the ends of justice. And the ignorance of the law is not an excuse. We are talking here about a forex trader, an educated man that took an action so far that he tried to dispose of a body which he merely could have phoned the police or the ambulances to try and see what happened. Why dispose and burn a body if you have done nothing wrong?
Which is what the judge actually went on to state, to say that that conduct on its own was indicative of a man that showed no remorse or appreciation for what had just happened. You wouldn't be seeking to exonerate yourself when you find your dead lover. But it seems remorse plays a bigger role in the law. Many of us would have thought that it's just the facts. Did you perhaps find his fingerprints on the body? All of those things, would have thought it's a factual process. But here it seems just your conduct can decide how, whether you're guilty or not, or in terms of sentencing.
Well, your conduct definitely bears mitigating or aggravating circumstances to hand. The problem here is that he disposed of any physical evidence there was to start off with. By burning the body, you could not find DNA evidence, fingerprints, anything in that regard. And he further went on, and in court he showed no remorse for any actions whatsoever. I mean, he claimed to be innocent up until Wednesday, still of any actions of the murder, still sustaining that she committed suicide. And in a country where the femicide is in such a rise, that is not the proper approach to adopt.
And then as for Sandile himself, could he have some form of recourse in this respect? Because here we are, we're talking about perhaps even his legal representative was poor in deciding to have the case closed. There wasn't a situation where we had Mantsoe applying for a discharge in terms of Section 174. So could he perhaps say, I'm looking for new legal representation, and in my appeal, perhaps we could have some sort of a retrial?
He could surely use that, but will he have the funds available to do that on an appeal? And I'm not sure whether the judge made gave any permissions in regarding to appeal, or any parole comments or whatsoever at all. But the problem here is that he had counsel represent him, or an attorney. They must have sat together at one point in time deciding, listen, let's close the case. Sandile could have persisted, and he could have insisted, listen, I want to testify, I want to state my side, and I want to put my version out there. And the only thing he did is he apologized for burning her body. How do you apologize for burning a body with pool acid and petrol? How do you apologize for taking an action so far? I think in just admitting to doing that, he displays a fragment of his personality that, do you really want to see the rest of it?
I mean, that conduct, and at some point, some might see it as meaningless. There was a point where some photographer caught him with a peace sign. I mean, that alone, he is in mourning. If he hasn't killed his girlfriend, but he's in mourning, and you're showing some sort of fun side or jovial, a peace sign when you've lost your lover.
Yeah, no, that it makes no sense. I mean, do something, apologize, sit in court and look remorseful even. But his actions in court even is that of a plastic doll. That it sounds funny stating it like that, but he never during the course of the trial goes as far and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I've been caught out. It was a poor moment in my life. We had a bad case, we were arguing, this happened. There was no way that he tried to explain his actions at all. And it then reaches the point where you question his behavior, why then put a peace sign on your shoulder if you won't even speak out for yourself and try to exonerate yourself so that you can then find the correct person that, in your view, murdered the person that you loved? But his silence takes away that opportunity, which creates the illusion that he did, in fact, murder her.
And then the sentencing itself, is it fitting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The judge considered everything. The remorse is a big factor. Whether the accused or the convicted felon now can be rehabilitated is another big question that arises. But how do you, and this is also something that his advocate argued consistently in trying to not get more than the minimum prescribed sentence of 15 years. He continuously argued with the judge and said, but he can be rehabilitated. We can take action to still get him to make a positive contribution to society. And the judge still, with the facts in front of him, said, no, this is a devil in disguise. No, I'm not sending him out to society. In my view, he can't make a positive contribution.
And then eligibility for parole in such a case, when would it be? After how many years?
25 years. He's going to sit for a while. They have got the parole sentencing procedures where you've got the lifespan, the life sentence, where they do have certain time measures. But between 2 and a certain prescribed minimum sentence or a prescribed sentence period, you're going to sit 20 to 25 years, about the 6th of your sentence period, yes.
And then beyond that, if perhaps he reaches out to the family at some point, apologizes, does that also perhaps play some sort of a role in you being given that parole?
Your actions and your behavior in incarceration will definitely play a role. Your actions towards being rehabilitated, your remorse, reaching out, it might. But whether the family would accept that, that's the question. And whether he at any given point goes as far and admits, you know what, I did take negative actions and try and do something about it, that's the difference.
Well, all I can say is that we certainly haven't heard the last of that case. Thank you very much, Sinet, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
More news and updates on the other side of this break.
Papers to write down